Diablo 1 is one of my favorite games of all time. It has an atmosphere and a style that a lot of games have imitated over the years, but most ARPGs base their foundational movement, gameplay, and design off of Diablo 2 and not Diablo 1. I've always wanted to see more slow-paced, methodical ARPGs similar to Diablo 1, but there just are very few, if any. And I've always wanted to make a game, so I put one and one together, and well, you get my first devlog. Until I come up with a proper name, we're just going to call this Project Campfire for now. Let me preface this by saying I'm an average programmer who has made a single game for a game jam a long time ago in Unity. My depth of game knowledge is shallow at best, and my art skills are atrocious. But the entire purpose of this project is to learn to create a game. Anyway, because I want to get that same tile feel in my game, I went and did some research in D1. Here are some of the things I've noticed so far. So your character can only move in one of 8 directions. You can both single click to move or hold click to move. Your character can only pathfind up to a certain amount of tiles, as shown here. And finally, there is a separation of player location and player animation. After reading a couple posts and finding a video on it, essentially there is a soul and a visual component of a character. The soul contains all of the actual data, where you are currently located, the direction you're facing, and so on. Whereas the visual component is just what you see on screen. What makes this interesting is that when your player is pathing to a new location, the soul stays in the previous tile until the visual component reaches the center of the next tile. Some of you may remember getting hit by an enemy and instantly teleporting back to your previous tile. I used Unity's built-in grid system and created a tile class that harbors all the relevant data I may need, such as coordinates and occupation if it's pathable and so on. I then use a simple A-star pathing algorithm to traverse the grid. There's no weightage in terms of tiles that may be affected by a slow ability or something on the ground, just obstacles. From there, I decided for now I won't have a limited amount of tiles that you can path to, so I can just traverse more easily while making the game, but I'll add a note and think about it later. And finally, the separation of player and soul. I was able to imitate the player's movement just like in D1, however, instead of using a tick-based system, it's just using time. If you look at the pink tile, that is where the player's current data is currently still located, even though the entity is moving, which means I've come to a crossroads. I can either have all of my data stored similarly to how D1 does it, meaning when an enemy attacks they'll be aiming for the tile, or I can have the attack actually hit the position of the player entity that is moving. Well, that sounds like a future problem for me, so I'm just not going to think about it. Anyways, thanks for checking out my first devlog. I'll try to keep my upload schedule consistent, but that's entirely based on what gets added and if it's even worth making a video about. Later.